I'd like to call this meeting to order. Okay, so we have roll call after public comments. Can,
Public comment?
no, we need to do the roll call, but public comments before that. Okay, so can I have a motion to move item number 3 before item number 2? Moved by Mr. Anderson.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Galbraith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Thank you. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Here.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Here, okay. And Mr. Toure?
Here.
Secretary's aye, and Dr. Hall?
Here. Thank you. Okay, the pledge is later, so at this time we will entertain public comment. We have Heidi Gonzalez here to comment on leadership opportunity for our high schoolers, first ever all youth relay for life at Crete Monee High School.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Heidi Gonzalez. I'm from Monee and obviously a trustee in the village, but my reason here for coming this evening is to make an invitation and let you know about an opportunity that, as we segue from this evening of leadership, first of all, I wanted to thank the board for my first ever invitation. I've finally gotten to come, so thank you for that. It was my pleasure to be here, and again, a perfect segue into the leadership opportunities that a Relay for Life can bring to the students here at the high school. As we can see here, the American Cancer Society, for which I work, the largest global not-for-profit organization, has leadership opportunities in the Relay for Life movement this year in its 32nd season. And how I thought better to bring leadership and to bring community service and to bring a cause to our communities that have embraced it in the last couple of years. I'd like to offer it or have offered it to our high schoolers. And I'm trying to get on the calendar, and I think we've picked May 5th as a date this coming spring. And for those of you, who knows Relay for Life? Do you guys all know Relay for Life? Excellent, almost all of you. Relay for Life is a team event to fight cancer, and our goal in having an all-youth relay here is it shows like the student government and the leaders already here in the school to basically plan and execute a large-scale event of this magnitude and a fundraising event for the American Cancer Society. So you will be hearing about it in the next weeks and probably months, and an invitation to participate. And we're getting the leaders of the schools of all the different clubs to form teams, to plan the event, and to be the leadership of the event. So they take ownership of it. And again, this is something that they can put on their collegiate applications and things, and when they get to college already having participated in Relay for Life, again, more opportunities and more leadership that's afforded and awarded to them at the collegiate level. So I'm trying to let you guys know that this will be happening, and hoping to see your bright shining faces and participating with it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Dwayne Lutzow and Brian Scully of DLA Architects. Board discussion.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to see democracy at work. The kids were great today. So we were really here today to formally apologize to Mrs. Galbraith and to Mr. Toure. Some of the communications and the projects had the unfortunate consequence of indicating that you might have had something to do with the delay and the project, especially with the handrails. And that is certainly not the fact, and certainly not our intent at all. We certainly appreciate your concerns for safety, as do we, and take all of those situations very serious. And so, again, we apologize. We didn't ever want that to be construed as any kind of indictment of any sort whatsoever. We continue to work very hard to get the project completed. We're probably about 75% done with punch list right now, and again, working very hard for the betterment of all the students. So, again, just wanted to have that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we have Mary Bragg, American Education Week.
Good evening. I just wanted to take this moment to thank all of our educators for their continuous hard work with our students and helping them achieve the best possibility and best learning outcomes that they can have in our district. So I want to thank you for giving us guidance and leadership, and for all of our staff for their continuous hard work in the classroom.
Thank you.
Here, here. Thank you, Mary.
So for American Education Week, all of our staff received from the Board of Education, Terry just brought to me this card, as well as this mobile or portable car USB port. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's so you can use your laptop
Did I-
while you're driving.
Thank you.
Dr. Hall, did you hear that?
Yes. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now on to our good news report, and the topic of this month's good news report is our school board members' recognition. Dr. Cunningham.
Educational leadership starts with dedicated school board members, and we have that here. November 15th will mark the 8th annual School Board Members Day in Illinois. This is the district's and community's opportunity to thank local Board of Education members for their commitment in providing local governance voice for your public schools. Everyone understands that the school board members attend meetings, but those hours represent just a fraction of the actual time they devote to the district. They attend extracurricular events to support schools. They participate in professional development opportunities to learn how to be better board members. And often they are involved in other local events, representing themselves, their communities, and their district. Many of these activities take them away from time that they could be spent with their own family. Their sacrifice may be overlooked, but their work is of utmost importance. Quality education opportunities are one of the largest drivers of successful communities. The work of the school board members directly impacts the school district, students, and parents, but it touches the lives of nearly every resident in one way or another. Please join us as we say thank you to our committed CM 201U school board members this week. Thank you. Thank you. Now, besides giving them a nice thank you, we also have wonderful gifts that we would like to pass out this time. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 this way. Please take a moment and take a look. Oops. And 3 this way. Mr. Brown, I'll take care of you as soon as you get back.
Yeah, it's a very nice gift, Dr. Cunningham. It really looks nice.
I'm waiting. I want to see. I want to see the looks when y'all open. Okay.
If I break this ribbon, do I have a baby?
I'm going really easy. It's like a puzzle. I think it's a power. I think it's like a power portable charger. Am I right? Portable charger. Yeah, so you can plug it in. You don't need you don't need an outlet. Charge your phone or your computer. Oh wow. Jeez. Snow comes out. It's a charger. But I bet it's pretty close to a light.
One of these only, it's got CM2 on it. It's not, it's black, nicer. This is the older version.
This makes long.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Not much.
That's right. You a dedicated person.
Practicality and
That's what they fooled me today. Then I just figured out what they did. He said, sign this.
So do this.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you all for our gifts. We received a charger for our phone.
Phone and
Crete
laptop
Monee,
charger.
phone and lap. Oh, we need that. I know we send the emails.
Mhm.
Charging, as well as a commemorative globe for the addition at our middle school. So thank you all for that. Any other comments, anybody? Any other comments?
We'll definitely use my mobile charger this weekend at the Triple I. So thank you very much. That was awesome. Appreciate it.
And if you look at it, it represents very well on the side. When Natalie put that together, she put our emblem on the side, of course, with the district. So
Mhm.
it looks very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. Okay, next we have board updates. Do have a couple of updates. As someone, I think Ms. Gasparo just mentioned, the Board of Education will be attending the Triple I conference this weekend. This is our state conference, and it's a time for us to gather together as well as with our colleagues across the state in efforts to become more educated board members and participate in workshops that involve topics such as leadership, board and superintendent relationship building and interaction, school finance and school law, as well as collaboration and relationship building. So there's a ton of workshops for us to engage in. Also, a couple of our administrators, some of our administrators will be attending, as well as Terry Tobin, our secretary. So this is a time of learning for us, and it's always a pleasure to go to Triple I and gather the current information for board members and our administrators. So it's Triple I because it's the Illinois Association of School Boards, the Illinois Association of School Board Officials, and the Illinois Association of School Administrators, yes, all coming together for the weekend. So we will be attending that. Also, we had our Night of Leadership just now, but all of us board members participated in our Day of Leadership. And we visited our schools and met with our students and got to talk with them about what leadership means to them. And they asked us questions, we answered questions. I can speak for myself and say, you know, our students are very well educated on the democratic process, particularly because of this year's picking our motto. And some of the schools explained the process as to how they, you know, chose their motto. And I was just so impressed with the level of understanding that our students have, not only for voting, but the fact that they have a choice in casting a vote. And I can speak for myself in saying that I enjoyed myself, and this is one of the most exciting times of the year for me, particularly interacting with our students. Any other board members have any comments?
Say a couple words. I went to MEC in Balmoral, and they were both very different because MEC is so small. But I greatly enjoyed talking to the students about their process and going through this. And I was, you know, especially in the wake of this contentious election, I was so gratified to see these kids not cynical about the process, but rather really energized around, you know, the civic process and debating each other and working out ideas together and coming to consensus among themselves. And I have to say, the school that's in my sub-district, Balmoral, won. So I was real happy about that. So. Oh, and Janine's too. So, but they were, and that was a really big group, and they just asked such great questions. I felt like the teachers, the advisors, the principal, you know, had really guided them well, so that those hands, I swear, every kid in the room had their hand up to ask a question or make a really informed comment, and it's just really good to see, and really made me sort of restored a certain optimism about our process here. So, so I was just so happy to have that opportunity. That's all I got.
Any other comments?
Again, it was certainly a great opportunity, as you indicated, Dr. Hall, earlier. Last week, we obviously have all experienced our most recent election, and to hear, I think I was at Crete Elementary with Mr. Teray, and we asked those students there. It is. Hello. Testing. Okay, so we asked the students there. Mike did a very in-depth, and he can tell you more, but he did an in-depth discussion on the electoral college process, and somehow I pocket called Christian, and he gave him a high five on his presentation. So that's how he heard it. But seriously, just as Dr. Hall said, it was really interesting to see how much the students know. So kudos to moms and dads and educators across the country. I think it was Dr. Harden in the Committee of the Whole who mentioned that this is a great time now more than ever to have this type of leadership involvement for students, because as I said to the kids at Crete Elementary, it's been since third grade that I was student government, and it's been a part of my life always to be an advocate and to be outspoken. So I thought it was really good that we are, to me, grownups didn't really advocate for us when we were kids to be that involved. So this leadership night, as well as us going around and hearing what the kids have to say and just encouraging them, they need to see the faces, what people look like that are elected in their town. They look like people who you see at your local restaurants and, you know, things like that. They're neighbors. Oftentimes it just looks like elected people are people that are stuffy and live somewhere far out. But I thought that this was and it's always been a great opportunity. I've commended you, Dr. Hall, for years for your leadership in instituting this leadership night. I know sometimes it has been just a lot of work, but it's certainly well worth it. And I, for one, definitely send additional kudos to you for just continuing in it because it's definitely much needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we will have administrative updates. Superintendent.
Mine is quick and short. Last week, for the first time, I had an opportunity to go to the Illinois Association of School Administrators, IASA, Cook County Region meeting. Senator Menard was there discussing funding and the work that they're doing on funding, and telling us that we're going to get this together in some time. But while I was there, I discovered that there is two types of student loan forgiveness. One that we've been working on in the district many, many times, and that is where our teachers come to us and administrators sign off and the government gives you credit and they take off a portion of it. Well, there's a second set that works more for administrators and for others who are working in nonprofit organizations. And they were supposed to send the information to us by now, but it's not here yet. But we're going to be putting that on our website. And it's not only for those educators in the room. There are many of you here who spend some time with nonprofits or your children work for nonprofits. And it will forgive the certain type of loans. And we want to make sure that that information is available to our community, definitely to our school members and anybody else that can use that for student loan forgiveness.
I don't know about anybody else, but I could definitely use that. Okay, moving forward, our curriculum, administrative update, our school report cards.
Well, annually, the state of Illinois releases our school report cards at the end of October, and so our school and district report cards became available on October 31st. Our public can access those at illinoisreportcard.com, and I encourage everybody to do that. It's an information-rich site. It's highly interactive. It has a new look this year, a new homepage. They have also included some state data that wasn't previously available, and now there are resource videos that help the viewer understand some of the information on there. We also have two new metrics this year that are on there for districts. One is teacher attendance, so they're looking at the percentage of teachers who miss 10 or fewer days a year due to illness or using personal days. And the other one is a health and wellness metric that looks at the number of days per week that students have physical education. Basically, the school report cards are, they have 5 headings. There's academic progress, district environment, students, teachers, and administrators. And within those headings there are metrics, 36 in all. So again, a lot of information on the website. The other nice thing about it is that all of our principals have the opportunity to go in anytime during the school year and add some highlight information about their school, so that can be updated as things change. So that information is there. And the other nice feature about the report cards is the ability to go in and compare your district or school to other districts and schools across the state. So a nice comparative feature. You can look at our data over time, and you can also look at how schools compare across to the state averages. We are required to communicate this, which we put it on our district website as soon as it came out. We've done 2 school messengers, and our schools have also put it in their November newsletters. And then, of course, there's the presentation to the Board of Education. A couple of things I wanted to note. We do have some highlights of some of our data. As I said, there's a lot of information on there, so for me to report out would take probably an entire evening. But our enrollment for 2015-16 was up slightly. As was our student attendance. We were up to 93%. Our PARCC proficiency, our composite score, and our English language arts scores increased. Math remained the same, but just a kind of a note on that. For this coming school year, high school will no longer be taking the PARCC exam, so our data will change because it won't include any high school scores. Our college readiness, which is the percent of students that earned a 21 or higher on the ACT, was up 3%. And that is the last year that we will be having ACT. So next year that will be based on a different test. Our graduation rate at the high school increased by 6%, and it's higher than the state average. Our freshmen on track to graduate remained at 80%, a number that we're working to increase. Our eighth grade students who are taking Algebra 1, we went from 24% to 23%. It's a little below state average, but we have more students that are in the pipeline to take Algebra 1 by the time they finish eighth grade, so that number should be increasing next year. Our post-secondary enrollment, that's the percent of students that enroll in either a 2 or 4-year college within 12 or 16 months after graduating from high school. Both of those percentages went up. And our teacher retention rate decreased by 1%. We went from 89% to 88%. But again, that metric is above the state average. That's the second year that that's been reported. And one thing that is interesting is that our instructional and operational spending per pupil both went up slightly, but are still, they continue to be below state average. So we're seeing increases in academic metrics, and at the same time, our spending is not as high as some other districts, which I think is always a positive.
Thank you for that report. I know that you went into a little bit more detail with us on the committee of the whole meeting. And I want to reiterate that these are available for our public to view at Illinois Report Card. .com?
Yes.
I get it mixed up with the IIRC.
Yes, that's another one.
Our public can go to that website and view all of our schools' report cards as well as our district profile. Any comments or questions from board members?
I have one quick question. On the new category, the teacher attendance, 10 days or less, 10 or less days absent, it says 50%. What does that mean versus the 77%? Is that how many were there?
Yes, the state average was 77% of teachers in the state missed 10 or fewer days of work in the year, and we were at 50%.
So 50% of our teachers missed more than 10 days?
Yes, 50% missed more, 50% missed less.
I'm sorry, say that. And those are not, I mean, these are like sick days, whatever.
Sick days and personal days.
Professional development or
Correct.
whatever.
Not professional development, just sick and personal. So, and it's a new metric, so it's the first time it's been reported. So again, once we have a number like that, now it's a baseline for us, and it's a way to start making improvements.
So the 77% is going to be the baseline?
No, the 50% is our baseline.
It's
The
our
70
baseline.
The 77% is the state
It's the
average.
state average. So again, clarity, I think I asked this question in committee of the whole, but is there a target percentage? You know, I know they put it on there, but is there any language regarding what is considered normal or?
No, there's no target. It's just because it's the first year of reporting, everything is a baseline. So every district now has a starting point, and the state average is the state starting point.
And do you know what the conversation was regarding why it's now on the report card?
You know, we look at student attendance. So now they're reporting not only the attendance of our students, but the attendance of our teachers.
Okay.
Time out of classrooms means time away that students are in front of a substitute, not in
Right,
front of the
okay.
regular teacher, impacts learning.
So does that weigh in any way to us as far as, I know the state will be moving towards us telling our story, you know, a little more detailed, you know, when we start implementing ESSA.
Yes.
So what do they suggest we do with that information?
They haven't really made any suggestions. And one thing to note on this, the data for that metric was taken from the 2013-14 Office of Civil Rights report. So the data itself is actually 2 years old. The data, the next year's data will be, you know, we're always going to be a couple of years behind because of where they're taking that data from. So and I think that's probably a conversation that Mr. Neal and I can have in terms of trying to pull that metric, a more current, percentage for us,
Mhm.
because we are looking at data that's 2 years old.
Okay. I would be interested in when you guys pull that. Thank you. Okay, next we have District Affairs, our FOIA update. Dr. Clark,
Good evening, everyone.
good evening.
I will be reporting for the month of September as well as October. In September, we had 7 FOIA requests. All FOIA requests and public comments from 2013 to present. The name of the requester, Jason Weller. This FOIA has been partially fulfilled. We are going through all 2013 FOIA records, all emails, and everything that came through internet. To complete this, it is taking an extensive amount of time. We're at 11 hours as of October the 6th. I will be making an update to this at the end of this week and hoping to have this fulfilled by the end of the week as well. The second one, a salary of high school guidance secretary and money paid for the temporary assistant to the athletic director. Secretary, request made by Tammy Burnham, and it was filled on September 27, 2016, 1 hour to complete this. The third FOIA for September, all emails from 2015 to present involving the superintendent and our school board pertaining to the football program, field, and athletes, soccer program, field, and athletes, documents pertaining to upgrades to the football field and soccer field. Tobias Deacon, this request has not been filled as of yet. We are still going through all emails and electronic communications. The fourth in September, how many parking permits are purchased each year by students at the high school for the last 5 years? What is the money used for? What general ledger account is that placed into? What is it spent on? Jen Talon is requester. It was filled September 29th, 20 minutes to report that information. September, the fifth one for September, what schools in Crete Monee Community Unit School District 201U have a stock of undesignated epinephrine auto injectors and which do not? Catherine Smizer from NBC5 is the requester. It was filled in September, on September 29, 2016, 20 minutes to complete this. The sixth, bid contract for gym t-shirts and gym shorts, names of all bidders, cost per bidder, winner of the bid, and delivery time. Midwest Stencil Company, filled October 18, 2016, 2 hours to complete. Request regarding students enrolled both general education and special education, Whitted to Keith Hansen LLC, filled October 20, 2016, 13 hours to complete. Total hours for the month of September, 30.40. The first for October, Smart Procure from October 8, 2015 to current, Gabriella Loricella, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, filled October 18, 2016, 4 hours to complete. All written communication between Superintendent Cunningham, Nakia Hall, and law firm of Hauser Izzo LLC regard athletic code of conduct. Requester Tammy Burnham, filled October 25th, 2016, 2 hours to complete. Itemized list of costs pertaining to CMMS grand opening event, Tammy Burnham, filled November 4th, 2016, 15 minutes to complete. Copy of the meeting minutes where the Board of Education took action to remove the athletic code of conduct from policy, Tammy Burnham requested. November 4th, 2016, filled 15 minutes. Total of 4 FOIAs for October, totaling 6 hours, 30 minutes. That completes my report of FOIAs for September and October.
The question you state there, do you have a written response that you gave the individual? Copy of meeting minutes where the Board of Education took action to remove the athletic code? When did that take place?
Anything pertaining to the minutes here, because we have live and it's already recorded, I always refer them back to the district website to review all comments, all minutes of that nature. And so that was made by Tammy Burnham and it was filled on November 4th. So there was nothing but me giving directions as to how to get that information from our website.
So how do we respond if it doesn't exist?
We just send a letter basically saying there is no documents pertaining to your request.
So is that what the response was for this?
No, it was just, all minutes that you're requesting, anything pertaining to minutes, anything pertaining to comments made at a board meeting, I direct them to the actual meeting for them to review online.
Okay.
So when we say fulfilled, it could be that they got the information they requested, or they we could
Or we could have
respond
said,
that there's nothing.
that is correct.
Okay, so this goes back to my original, I've been saying this forever. I'm 100% happy that people FOIA things. We'll probably have this FOIA or on Facebook tonight. My question is, if we're not giving an answer to it, so for example, to the general public, you just said basically go read it yourself. And so what I find, or what I'm seeing in these screenshots that I keep getting with the misinformation from, let's just say, our Facebook page, you will have something like this to read. I couldn't get it. They refused to give it to me. Or it said something else. I mean, I've literally seen lies. So what I want to know is, first of all, at no time did the Board of Education have a meeting to remove, not this Board of Education in this years that I've been on it, have any meeting to remove the athletic code. So why isn't that just plainly stated? Because that's the fact, that's the truth. Why don't we say that?
Because they're not always clear as to what board does something. So just because I get something in a particular month, if they do not specify the years, then I can only refer them to where the information can be found. If they're giving me specific information and we actually have that documentation, I do provide them with that documentation.
I like to know also when an individual FOIAs information. So we basically just give documentation. So I'll give you an example. I was FOIA'd a couple of months ago regarding my travel. And to my understanding, the documents that were sent were just documents if it had my name on it. However, what was sent, actually, some of it was inaccurate. So we don't say anything, we just send documents.
We send the documents pertaining to the request made. So if it was something about a particular spending expense that you had for a particular event that you attended, I will receive those types of receipts pertaining to that event and any questions pertaining to that request. They could not just get everything that you've ever done. It has to be specific.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
One of the documents that was sent was a plane ticket for me to fly to Baltimore when we were going to hire a different superintendent who was from Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
And board members were going there on site to see the superintendent in action and to interview his subordinates, his administration and board or whatever. I did not go. However, that was not indicated. So when you look at the paperwork, it looks as if I went. So there was no documentation of cancellation or anything. So there were a few incidents like that. So we just send, and the public is left basically to assume, okay, this took place, because we're not giving additional information.
The information that I am sending, and if I made a mistake, please let me know that. But the information that I'm sending always has to do with the requester. So if they're specific in what they're asking me, I'm very specific in what I'm giving in return. And if there is any doubt, then I make sure I contact the proper people to oversee what I'm giving to make sure.
So in that instance, you wouldn't send, this is the cancellation of that flight.
I wouldn't send any information pertaining to you at all if you were not there, because it would have to say,
Well, it
I
was
want
sent.
everything pertaining to this. And so in looking at the FOIA, you have to look at the entire request. So if you were not there and they specifically said, I want everything pertaining to the flight that you took to Baltimore for Dr. Hall, then I will respond, there is no items pertaining to this request because you were not there. If they said, I want all the items and anything associated with Baltimore, including Dr. Hall, that had her name on it, regardless of whether she went or not, or all inclusive, then yes, all that information should have been provided.
So then that would also include, if you're saying all the documentation, I would think it would include the documentation that
That is
says this
correct.
flight was canceled.
Right, if they requested all documentation, then everything should have been sent.
However, I don't think that was the case. So I just think we need to make sure we're sending out the correct information, tightening up on whatever we need to do.
Definitely. And if there's ever, if it's happened already, if information has gone out, I can always get with the attorney if something happened prior to me even taking over this role. I can always go back and make sure information is accurately sent and update our website accordingly.
Does my memory serve me correctly? Because it doesn't always do that. Didn't it used to, if we didn't send something, hey, I admit it. If there were no documents, didn't we used to put no
were no
documents
documents
pertaining to this or
related
something,
to
so we
this,
knew in
yeah.
this report? Is it possible that maybe we could go back to that?
Definitely.
And we
Just
also-
because, like you said, there were many cases where there was no documentation. I think it just would be good for us to know that there weren't any documents that were provided for that or whatever.
No problem, I can do that.
Let me ask this too, because I'm not real familiar with FOIA regulations, but are we required to furnish only, the straight up documents with no narrative interpretation or explanation? Or do you understand what my question is?
Yes, and you're actually correct. It is dependent on how it is worded. So if it's clarification that I need, I do send an email, however it comes to me, asking for clarification, because sometimes they are requesting something that just absolutely does not exist. So I want to make sure in some cases, and I've had that to happen a few times, or maybe they are calling it something different and I will just ask for a clarification. Or they would be very broad to say, and I'm making something up here, I want all the emails that has taken place between Dr. Cunningham and Mr. Anderson. Then I would send an email to say, could you give me a specific timeline?
Gotcha, thank you.
It's important that we remember that FOIA requests are freedom of information requests for documents. They're not to create questions, answers, or, it takes a while many times to chase down those documents, but it's not to create information or databases for anybody requesting. It's just documents that we have.
Either respond or provide the information,
Right. The normal time limit is 5 days. I've had to ask for extensions on some of these, and as you can see, some are very extensive. And so we have just been working to get them as fast as we possibly can.
Like this one from Tobias Deacon. You haven't even. It's been a lot.
It's been a lot, and I'm still going through information trying to fulfill this.
And that
And
person has
what
been-
are you, I'm sorry.
the person's been notified that you're working on it or given an extension?
Yes, I let them know that I'm still working on the information and why it is taking.
Burden. What point does it become?
We did used to do that.
I mean, I'm just asking, at what point, hours and you're not done yet? I mean,
I am always seeking guidance from our attorneys on that, and yes,
Okay.
we've had that conversation.
And then you indicate, or you're not so far, the number of hours. I hear you saying I'm having a conversation, because I think one of these FOIAs requested how often, well, in particular, I know it was related to the athletic code, but I think there has been some question about how often the superintendent how often the superintendent and/or individuals are having discussions with the attorneys. So again, all of this, and when you have to seek guidance, there's some additional monies involved, or how does that work as far as the legal fees?
That is correct. The hours will be associated with myself, and anytime I have to contact our attorneys for guidance. So those hours are always added together, but it is costing us money every time I have to go outside my department to seek additional help, even if that is going through technology, the business office. I mean, a lot of times I'm having to go through a lot of people just in central office to get information that we need. So yes, it does add up.
Okay, would it be helpful? I mean, I don't know why, because we have to do it, so it doesn't matter how many hours we're spending, I'm guessing. But to the point Jennifer just made about the burdensome process, is it ever the case? You're asking these questions for some reason. Does not any municipality, school district for that, in this reference, do you, and this is for you, Superintendent Cunningham, do you guys ever take any of this information and say, because they're asking it for a reason, so are these things that could be answered in some other format? In other words, to save $1 if you want to know something that you still didn't get. And I'm just saying, because I've seen the increase in them through the years, specifically for things that have already been discussed and or are transparently already available. So it's as if, either what we keep hearing is things are being withheld. So are we finding ourselves becoming more transparent? So as, I'm not saying avoid this, but mitigating and minimizing it for the sake of, as you say it, the cost. This stuff is not anything that, this isn't secret mission 101. So I'm just confused as to if they came and asked for it, maybe not the emails from you or any emails. Obviously, if you're not on the email, you're not going to see it, but you have a question of some sort. Why then is it so difficult to extract the information without all these other individuals being involved in it, and that being such a laborious process?
It's a challenge because FOIA is a request for documents, and there are not always documents that are pertaining to the questions. And then there's the other part. Sometimes they ask us a question about this document, and you can't even tell what they're looking for. In that case, Dr. Clark will call back and ask, hey, how can we help you get the information that you're looking for? If it's a document, we'll give it to them. If it's something else that we could bring them in and talk to them about, we're glad to do that too. We're not hiding anything. We don't have anything to hide. But sometimes they're asking for put together stuff, because they'll ask something that's in this database here, and they want it cross-referenced with this database here over to this database there. And there's no document that does that. We would have to create it. And it would take hours or somebody in IT or somebody else to do it. It's very difficult sometimes to get exactly what they're looking for.
So there's not, okay, so you're answering that. There's really no proactive measure to say, so if I looked at this list over and over, you see a recurring names. So, it leads me to believe that you do believe at some point, or in most points, as I see, that there are any number of people that we target to inquire. What's their email? What's their where do they get their doctorate degree, their elementary school degree, whatever. So that's tedious, foolish, ridiculous, but for whatever the purpose, somebody had to go and look up or attempt to look up for it.
Yes.
And I'm going to go all the way back to where did Dr. Hall get her doctorate degree? Can somebody just call her or email her and ask her that, if it is actually anybody's business aside from her own credentialing purposes? I mean, you don't need that for this job, but
somebody, you're telling me then, had to actually do what? Because you surely can't answer that. No, is the school going to actually give you information on another person's?
No, that we would tell them that there are no documents pertaining to their request.
Okay.
You know, that's personal information that they should ask an individual board member. That's not something that the school district has. You guys don't have employee records.
But so when you see a recurring, finally, I'm saying, when you see recurring individuals, do you guys, and I hope at some point, I see you every month, let's sit down, can we have a conversation with you? What is it that you're seeking? There's some feeling of, as you said, I'm not hiding anything. It's a public institution. But the idea of how we circumvent it, because we have no real way of, as I said, I started this conversation because when you answer the question, you guys don't give a concrete answer. So as Dr. Hall indicated, you're left out there to believe, actually, because I'm sure that's somewhere written, that Dr. Hall went to Baltimore, which is not a fact. So you can't get the fact out at any point because that's not anything that is really a burden to you guys. You're not supposed to respond to that specific thing. You don't even know if that was their real question, just it was a more broad question. Anything relating to Baltimore is what maybe somebody would want to know. And that would be the only way, like digging in, that you would get into, oh, and this person didn't go, this person did or didn't. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am, and that's what we're saying. We'd have to have a document that actually show those things, because we send out documents for FOIA requests.
And just so I can make sure that I'm clear, when we do respond, even our response is put online as well, not just what they're requesting, but our response to them.
Yes, we implemented that.
Yes, the information that we're providing is put online as well.
It seems like, it behooves us to be as transparent as possible and as responsive as possible to these, but it also seems like parameters of the law, if people want to interpret it differently or say we're not giving them everything, I don't know how we,
Can't do anything.
we just have to live with that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so far, no one has called me to say this is not what I requested. In fact, when I first came on board, I went back and introduced myself and said, I understand there's still some outstanding things here. I want to be of help. Always reach out to me and I will be fulfilling these things. So as we get to moving forward, and hopefully my response, I try to be as timely as I possibly can with the information that I'm providing, that they will feel more comfortable in just calling me to say, hey, tell me this, or can you share this? But I think we have to build that relationship.
So by law, we have to reply, I believe, in 5 days. Okay, and how are we calculating those days?
It's 5 business days. It does not include the weekends or the holidays. So if I receive it on a Thursday, my day 1 starts Friday. Unless it's a holiday. And then I would always ask for a 5-day extension. And if it's going to go beyond that, I tell them the reason why.
And I'm looking at, which one is this? Okay, this one from September, Tobias Deacon, all emails from 2015 to present involving the superintendent and our school board pertaining to the football program, field and athletes, soccer program, field and athletes, documents pertaining to upgrades to the football field and soccer field. So what is the hard part of fulfilling that request?
Having to go back and pull every email that had every single one of these words in it, and then going through it to find out what pertains to this particular request, then going through it to see what can be presented and what has to be redacted, and that's what the attorneys will work with us on.
Okay, so it's between the superintendent and the school board. That's off the top.
Right. But remember, it started with all email correspondence. So you have to first pull everything with those words.
Right, but I'm saying it's specifically emails pertaining to the superintendent and the school board itself.
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Sorry, I get disconnected. I apologize. I don't know what happened.
We didn't either. Sorry about that, sir.
Sorry. I think Dr. Cunningham's folder may have pressed this red button.
I just have one question.
Mike, I was still asking a question, sorry. I was still asking a question. So just to get clarity, so this is emails between the superintendent and the school board. So what's the process? You all, is there a system that you enter these words in and emails pop up?
I'm not the IT yet, so I'm going to try to explain it the way it was explained to me as I look towards. You're going to come and help me? Thank you. Take your time.
We need to get him a mic back there. That's true.
Next month, sit in the front row.
For Don to do it.
Thank you.
Is it on? It doesn't seem to be on. Oh, it just came on. Something made a noise. Oh, it must be short. But the public can, you don't, when people don't talk on the mic, it doesn't go on there.
Okay, so when we get our requests for the FOIAs, we set those FOIA requests by queries. So if I have a query, for instance, in this scenario that says I need a correspondence between the Board of Education, Superintendent Cunningham, Mr. Tobias, I have those parameters for those individuals as one set of queries. And then I have a query that says anything about the football or soccer field. Now that's a broad query that produced over 75 pages worth of results. Now I provide those
75 pages from the superintendent and the Board of Education?
Yes, with their names, only with their names, because the FOIA is so broad that the query is going to give you a massive amount of information based on the parameters that you set.
So keywords.
Yes, it's all the parameters that we set that are in that FOIA that I create the query from. So I get the results from all of those. I don't know which ones are actually being requested. I just provide all of the information based on those parameters that are being asked. So I hand those over, and from that point, they actually parse through all of those documents to find out what's pertaining to what that is being asked from the FOIA. So that's why it becomes a long, drawn-out process, because it's a lot of information that's being extracted for maybe that FOIA. So I don't know what's actually being asked. I just give what's being asked from me.
So you've delivered this information
Yes.
to District Affairs?
Yes.
Okay. And this request was made in September. So this is 75 pages of information.
Right.
And we still have not fulfilled this because we have not taken time to go through the 75 pages? What?
No, it's because of the time that it's taken to go through all those pages. And so because it has taken so much of my time, I've actually requested the help of the attorney to assist so I can get through the other FOIA requests for the months. So
we
when it
enlisted
comes,
the help of the attorney to go through pages.
yes, because it does become, like you said, it is a burden, but we have the documentation and therefore we have to answer the FOIA. But on top of this FOIA, we have several other FOIAs that is also taking time. So it takes more than just a couple of weeks or 5 days to get it all done.
So then do you ever return to the requestee and say, in order for us to fulfill this, it will take whatever, approximately at whatever many days, do you wish to adjust your request? Do you do that?
I basically let them know that it is going to take an extensive amount of time due to what I have to do to get it. And the response is usually, okay, let me know when you have it.
But we never give them the option of maybe you want to adjust it a little, because sometimes, remember, this is the public. So they may think this is a simple request. And sometimes maybe you need to notify them, you know what, this is actually a large request and it'll take a very long time. Do you want to adjust it to maybe only include, whatever? My concern is I'm all for abiding by the law. And the law does state that we only provide the documentation that the district houses. And basically, the law is very specific regarding the timing to get back to these individuals. And so a month and a half in, and we're basically saying it's just taking us time to go through 75 pages. We have had individuals contact the Attorney General's office because they feel like, look, this is just taking too much time. So I'm just concerned that we're taking a long time to fulfill a few of these. So in your conversations with the lawyers, what are they saying legally? Are they saying, like Janine said, you can say, oh, this is a burdensome request? Do they feel like it's burdensome? What are they saying?
No, in fact, I actually, when I emailed them, I asked, I do feel this is burdensome, please advise. And they tell me exactly what to say. And so far, there has not been a document that I would respond to as burdensome, even though it is lengthy. But they do advise me as to what to tell them and how to put it in writing and go for it. So if it's going to be something past the 5-day, and even when I ask for an additional 5 days, I've been advised as to how to do that. And then we just move forward from there. So as we go through every week, every other week, as I get all the information in, I make sure I update and let them know what we're doing. So
And
I
how long
never,
have they been in possession of this?
it took us, how long did it take us to pull all of this?
It took about 3 days for one of the requests. Because again, what we're saying is that, I don't know if I've said it clearly or not, but if we put a query for a superintendent, board member, and if the word football field comes up, that's FOIA. If the word soccer field comes up, that's FOIA. So it's like, we don't really know what to actually look for. But if those words come up and they say, I want all the information that you have between the superintendent and board about the football field. If I see football field, then that's fulfilling the request. So it took a few days just to get all of that information, and then to extract it to Dr. Clark another day. So it was about a week.
And then when I get it, I go through it and try to see if I can get it in quickly. And if I can, I immediately get in contact with the attorney. And we do a right-of-way pickup and go through all the documentation and let them go through it with me.
Oh, again, how long have they had it?
It's been about maybe 2 weeks now. And see, and I also want to point this out because I don't want anyone to think that IT is slacking, I'm slacking, or the attorney is slacking, because there are other jobs that are being done while this is taking place as well. So yes, it does seem like it's been a long time, but when you also have other jobs that you have to perform, you have to get that done as well.
Any other comments?
I just have a comment on the this thing here, the one we're just talking about from I don't know if this is a Mr. I guess it's a Mr. Tobias Deacon. This looks like a fishing expedition. Why do we have the authority to just come back and ask this individual, what are you looking for, sir? You know, what particularly are you looking for? And we'll provide you the documents for that. I mean, this looks like, they're throwing a net out in the sea here, and they're going to catch whatever fish they can catch. This person is obviously looking for something. He wants an answer to something, and it's not telling you what he's looking for here. He's just telling you, I want this correspondence. Do we ever use, God forbid, common sense and say, what do you want? What are you looking for, sir? What is the subject matter of your request? I mean, can we do that?
In my training, and if, like I said, if it's something that I miss, and I have no problems with going back, reviewing, or doing anything, but in my training, we're to take the FOIA as it is received.
But you said earlier that if it's general, you ask them more specific.
If it's something like, for instance, like I gave you, all emails pertaining to something, well, you definitely can't want all emails since the day of time. So in that case, yes, but he was specific in what he was asking for. So yes, we do believe that it's more to it, but he's very specific in what he's requesting.
So the bar for specificity in the law is pretty low.
It is.
And we're not really allowed to go back. If that's met, those minimum, like the date seems like it's pretty much.
Really, that's the key.
Right?
That really is the key,
Then,
making sure you're getting that during that time frame. And
so burdensome then is the only criteria we can use to say you can't do this, or can you narrow and the attorneys are saying, I mean, you mentioned that they've said so far that none of
so far nothing has been burdensome.
What constitutes burdensome?
Well, I have yet to figure that out yet, because no one has told me that. I have asked that question in my response to them, and no, so far that's not the case. And once again, I know it seems like a lot, but if we have the documentation, we have to provide it. And it may be 50 pages long, but if we actually have that documentation, we must provide it.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask that the superintendent speak with the lawyers to see about some of the suggestions that were brought up this evening regarding Mr. Teray's question. Like I said, is it legal to then contact the requester and ask them, just to let them know, this is potentially burdensome, maybe not use that word since the lawyer doesn't agree, but, this could take longer than 5 days. Do you want to, adjust your request? Or even what Mr. Teray said, this is a generalized, or whatever, how you want to call it. Do you want to make it more specific? But basically asking them, I think the issue would be if we actually told them, you're only going to get this, or this is specifically what we're going to provide you. I think if you, give them the opportunity to kind of, get it a little bit more detailed and honed in, maybe they may change and we're not dealing with these elongated requests. So.
Or even you, Doctor, what I was asking earlier, Dr. Cunningham, is that when you guys have a list of all of these.
Can I talk 1 second here?
Mrs. Sanders is
just
talking.
Let me finish one thing,
Hold on one
Mr.
second.
Brown. So I was just saying, you have a collection of FOIAs. So when you talk about community relation, if you will, and you want to, if we can't do it that way because it's all the legal ramifications, what have you, you're looking at these are a sign of, for the most part, particularly I'm focused more thinking on the community-based ones. You see consistent inquiries, and it's a community, in my opinion, it wreaks community lack of trust in some degree. So these, could you not utilize on some of your, the previous, what do you call them, community forums, these questions, because they seem never to really be answered. And I wasn't joking earlier, they wind up in the social media discussions. And we know that many of them, I remember one I saw specifically where we provided documentation at it wasn't a committee of the whole then, but it was a finance meeting. You guys provided documentation. It winds up on the social media page, but scripted, copied and pasted differently from what was presented to them. So again, where are you getting the information that's being asked, let's just say, and answered? And then, like you said, Christian, you can't right the wrong, so to speak, or correct it, because you'd have to take the persons who are ever creating, whatever the creators are who are using their social media weaponry, is using it to their own device. And then we are somewhere trying to be an accurate voice for for the entire community. So, okay, can you compile this information for the sake of your community relations piece and kind of, put out, these are some things we've been asked through the years. What do we do? Or I shouldn't say giving somebody specific emails, but talking about things that evidently concern people. People are concerned apparently about what our high school guidance secretary makes, and most likely not so much what the person makes, but maybe are they connected to somebody or whatever. That's human resources. So, I mean, we have what do you call it? Nepotism policy. But what I'm saying is, can we not, in a broader perspective, answer these questions overall, because they seem to be repetitive in nature and we see they're consistent in their authors. So again, and the author is just the person that decided to send the physical or formal request. Obviously, maybe they're speaking for a bigger number of individuals. So can you guys not kind of look at this and take this as a proactive measure and say, we're going to answer at our next whatever 50 of the most requested FOIA requests, questions that have been asked us through the course of the year. Do you know what I mean? Dr.
Yes, ma'am,
Cunningham?
I do. Yes, ma'am, I do. And we can do that. I mean, when we did our last forum, it was mostly about the finances, but we took every question that was picked. We took them from the internet, and we even took a few, if I remember correctly, just directly from the crowd. So when we do our next forum, we can definitely do that.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Dr. Cunningham, I know we have listed the labor component with the FOIA report. I was just wondering if we can also list or document in some manner the monetary value that is costing the district to formulate the FOIA document.
We can take a look at monitorizing the amount of time that is used to fill these. We'll have to come up with a way to do that. We'll come up with a system. Yes, sir, we can do that.
Okay, appreciate it.
And I'd like to request, I know that it's mentioned in the report, but just basically what was the result of the FOIA? Or am I missing that? I don't see it on there.
I can have that for you.
Okay. Thank you. All righty. Moving forward, business.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Williams, Operational Services Report on Energy Consumption.
Good evening. Included in your packet is an informational report. Board policy requires periodic reviews and updates of the resource conservation policy, as well as the energy usage throughout the district. As you know, Mr. McLean is still getting acclimated to all of the many areas that he will save us money in over the next few years. So I expect that we will have additional information at the next update. I do know that he is attending a meeting tomorrow in reference to some of the energy grants that are available. So this is an informational report as required by board policy, and we look forward to presenting you with more information at the next update.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, Dr. Hall, I do have one question. for Dr. Williams. I cannot hear her pretty well, but nonetheless, under the electrical consumption, the little spreadsheet, if you can get to that on your computer. And it looks like Monee Elementary has been in the city of Crete. That should be in Monee.
We will look
And
into,
also, I have a question regarding the kilowatt hours usage for, I believe, 1515 West Exchange. Is that sixth grade center? Is that the new high school?
That's a high school.
That's the high school.
1515 is the high school.
All of that electrical consumption, is it over 5 million kilowatts? Does that include sixth grade center and the actual building as well?
I believe it does. Yes, Mr. McLean is nodding up and down, nodding his head up and down. That is all rolled into one bill. We're in the process of getting that broken out, as well as winterizing the sixth grade center to reduce energy usage there.
Which, you said it's reflected in which number?
Mr. McLean, can you step down and address that, please?
She said that it does include those buildings. But I'm asking for clarity where those numbers are included. Mr. McLean is here to respond to that.
Okay, I'll talk to her more offline. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Well, one of them was working a minute ago.
Well, there's a summary. Keith, you're gonna need to speak really loud.
There was such a made years ago to reducing the fees that were charged for monitoring. You know, the reviewing fees and everything was cheaper. I think it probably saved $100 a month per building. Right in that area is what I was told. I wasn't part of that decision process. It wasn't even before I started. And of course, the high school wasn't here then. But it also helped at that point with average demand charges. How they were average, which I'm sure you understand better than most. Because it's a smaller school with a buffer to the high school as far as demand.
Did you hear that, Mr. Brown?
Yes, thanks for the explanation, Keith. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, more of a comment. I just want to, I'm all about saving energy and saving costs, but I just want to make sure that we're not doing it to the detriment of students that are having to walk around with winter coats on or, tank tops when it's warmer. So let's just keep that in mind, that it's not always about the money. We need to make sure that the students are in a learning environment where it's going to be suitable for them. So, like I said, I'm all about saving the money and saving energy, but let's make sure that our students can learn in the environment, okay?
Can we make sure we're talking on our mics? Terry and I are straining to hear you over here, sorry.
I just want to make sure that we're not just saving money and saving energy, but our students are able to learn in the environment as well. Sorry, usually I have my teacher voice.
You need a teacher voice in college? Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Mrs. Gasparo. Second by Mrs. Galbraith. And the consent agenda reads.
A, Superintendent. 1, regular meeting minutes of October 18th, 2016. 2, regular meeting closed session minutes of October 18th, 2016. 3, special meeting minutes of October 31st, 2016. 4, committee of the whole meeting minutes of November 8th, 2016. Fifth, Committee of the Whole closed session meeting minutes for November 8th, 2016. B, business. 1, accounts, approve accounts payable, agenda of bills. 2, approve payroll. C, district affairs, approve plus issue 92 board policies. That ends the consent agenda reading.
Thank you. All righty, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Aye. Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
No.
And, okay, Mr. Toure? He said what?
Aye.
Okay, and Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report, to approve the employment of certified staff, the reassignment of certified staff, the leave of absence for certified staff, the return from leave of absence for certified staff, the intent to retire from certified staff, the resignation of certified staff, the dismissal of certified staff, the employment of educational support staff, the reassignment of educational support staff, the leave of absence for educational support staff, the return from leave of absence of educational support staff, the intent to retire of educational support staff, the resignation of educational support staff, and the dismissal of educational support staff.
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith,
Second.
second by Mrs. Gasparo.
And the personnel
Neal.
report reads, for certified staff employment, Rebecca Murtaugh. For certified staff leave of absence, Beth Pisarcik. For educational support staff employment, Justin Anderson, Kim Barrett, Candace Crittenden, Marilyn Donald, Daryl Herbert, Christopher Ingram, Ebony Reed, Corey Robertson, and Anna Sanchez. For educational support staff reassignment, Joy Coleman, Frederick Jarvie, and Anna Romo Padilla. For educational support staff leave of absence, Gunther Bauman. For educational support staff return from leave of absence, Linda Zurich. For educational support staff resignation, Thomas Matthews, Ebony Rucker, and Carol Van Cott. For educational support staff dismissal, we have William Casper, Lisa McGinley, and Vanessa Moore. And that ends the personnel report.
Thank you. Okay, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? And Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Last, for business. May I have a motion to approve the 2016 tax levy estimate?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Toure,
Second.
second by Mrs. Galbraith. Dr. Williams?
Good evening again. Included in your packet is a recommendation along with I'm sorry. Included in your packet is a recommendation along with supporting documents to approve the 2016 levy estimate via resolution. The estimate was discussed at the November Committee of the Whole meeting, and as part of that discussion, preliminary property values were provided. I think it's worth noting that while the county estimates that the 2016 values will increase roughly $30 million, they estimated an increase last year of $16 million, and it actually went down $5 million. As a result of the uncertainty in where the values will actually end, we always request an amount much larger than what we will receive. Last year, there was a lot of discussion regarding our request of a 10% increase. We received an increase of 0.82% due to tax caps last year. This year, we will again make a recommendation for a 10% increase, and based on the consumer price index of 0.7%, We will likely receive an increase of only 0.74% when you take into account new property. So again, this year's estimate will include an increase of 10%, but due to tax caps, we will only receive an increase of 0.74%. While we're requesting an amount above 5%, a truth in taxation hearing will be required. It is recommended that the Board of Education schedule that hearing for the December board meeting and approve the estimate as presented. Be happy to address any questions from the board at this time regarding the levy estimate.
Any questions? Okay, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Toure?
Aye.
Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Secretary's aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Any old business?
Yes, ma'am. I have old business. I've just passed out. Here you go there. Going over the strategic planning. We've talked about this. We've had Illinois Association of School Board representative come in to help us with this. It is time that we make sure that we are moving forward and moving on. I met with Mr. Anderson, who was helping with this earlier, and we went over what strategic planning was and the process that we have. Those are the first 2 pages. The thing that I really need to make sure that we talk to the board about is really on the 3rd page. I have ideas about who the focus groups are going to be, but this is the board's and the district's strategic plan. So we need to make sure that we are all agreeing about the focus groups, who we want to make sure has input into the strategic plan. People that, of course, we've included were the administrators, the teachers, our community. We also had a small group that had volunteered from the central office that would like to do it for non-union. So we have plenty of groups who'd be willing to come forward, but we want to make sure that this input is heard, and that if you have other people that you would like to be involved, that I make sure I note them. The CRC? Yes, yes. Others?
Okay, what, you don't have a process, in other words?
We have a process, actually. What Dr. Rice had talked about is making sure that we had all of these groups available for a day. He would come in with the process. They have questions that they go through for ISA, for input of the group, making sure that that input is gathered and that we get one voice, similar to one voice, for the community. That documentation would be presented to the Board of Education. But before I wanted to make sure that we include all of our focus groups. I mean, I don't want to miss anybody.
So in order to establish a focus group, again, I like what you guys just did with this, with the voting of the mottos. Again, your outreach was to a wider audience other than saying to us per se. I mean, because to me, you guys always wind up with the same people. So if you had a wide invitation, a broader, I should say, invitation, Mrs. Nash, your team could come up with something creative. Again, you need to inspire people to be a part of this conversation, because we're not going to move towards any new steps if we continue to have and not to eliminate the voices that normally come through, but to enhance it, because we are an evolving district and there are new people and they have new ideas about how they maybe want to see their kids educated, people who've just bought homes here, who want to have a say in that. I think we're too regimented in how we
or not regimented enough perhaps, but certainly regimented, and just we don't have a really good process in the past. For example, what was it, when we were on the watch list years ago, each board member, people had to come in and write a letter of interest, if you will, to say, I want to be on this committee. Again, the minute you say, write this paragraph or page, there was no competition from my district because people, for all the 4,000 and 5,000, no one wanted to write or be a part of that. So I don't know that that's the ticket. Whatever it is, it should be inspirational. It should be as inspirational as what just took place here tonight. That would have been a perfect, because this is their school. This isn't our school. So they should have, and I mean all the people, not the haves, or it should be everybody. So I think you should find a way with your creative marketing and communications and community relation teams to formulate that so that you get more of a well-rounded, some people just come to board meetings. Some people just come to meetings. Some people sit on committees because they're professional committee seekers. But finding that person who would actually offer some different ideas, I think we would be amazingly surprised at what people have to say, besides what we're accustomed to hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree, and I think that's why we kind of left some of these questions open. We had one kind of general conversation about the process, so I think there's a process here, but I think we wanted to talk more, about who should be included, and I also think it's not just a marketing effort, but that, I'm hoping that each of us as board members can really actively reach out and get some people involved in this that maybe haven't been involved before, or the people that come to you with, complaints or praise or some interest and passion about the district or the community can be roped into this as well. So, but I think it'd be good if each of us could really get behind this and kind of get out and start talking to people.
Oh.
Well, yeah, that's if we have to, But yeah, not just the usual suspects, to your point, and also the business communities in each of our villages, and sort of the leaders there, and kind of find. And I think when we say focus groups, we're not talking necessarily about maybe the formal professional, marketing groups, where we're not going to pay people, $200 to come in and answer questions about the district, but people who want to have some input. So, and then I think if we help together, work together to form this process and get these people included, it'll have that much more potential to really mean something and really be actionable.
So you like the idea they had before, where they had each board member suggested individuals from their district?
Yeah, but not just that. I mean, that could be one way to do it, but yeah.
How many
But not
people would be on a
limited just to
committee?
that.
Just out of curiosity.
Well, that's another
Depends on
decision
what
we're
we-
talking about here. Whether that be 50 or 150 or 250, that's, kind of the discussion that we're having here. We want to be inclusive, and we want to figure out how we're gathering these folks. I mean, it'd be simple enough for us to say, hey, IA, SB, how you guys done this before? You just do that. But that really wouldn't necessarily suit our community. That's why we wanted to make sure. And I think Dr. Hall was pushing this last time we had the discussion. She wanted to make sure that the board was included in how we chose, and that each and every one of you had a chance to kind of talk to us about it. What do you see? Who do we need to involve in these focus groups? Who's missing? I mean, and I think it was very good there, well said there. People who are calling you over and over about concerns, we need to have them in our focus groups to make sure that their input is heard too.
Can we maybe think about this overnight and send you an email with our thoughts? Since
Please.
This is just kind of like,
I'm taking some notes and going through it, but if you have other thoughts on this, it's not done tomorrow. It's not. So
or
please feel
talk
free.
about it again at the committee of the whole meeting.
Well, I'm trying to get it started a little. I wanted to do it in December, and that's getting away from us very quickly. So if we wait to committee of the whole, we're not doing anything till January / the end of February. That's how it is. But why don't you see what you guys can get to me? I'll report that back out to the Board of Education. If we feel like we're ready to go forward, I'll get it started. Is that okay with the board?
I think part of what I was pushing was, I just feel like if you bring stakeholders together, having not decided as the board, along with the superintendent, what's important, what we're looking for. So you bring people together and they're like, well, what are we doing? What direction do we need to go? So that's why I was really pushing that the board collectively, we have to come together as one voice and say, as leaders of this district, along with the superintendent, where do we see this district? What's important to us as a school board that we, achieve moving forward? Take that information to your focus groups and have those conversations. And, we can be a part of those conversations, but allowing them then to express what they see and what they desire. That's why I was saying, I think Dr. Rice was saying, oh, the board comes in later. But I just think that we need to establish as a board, along with you, what's important to us. A lot of times if you bring people in and, they'll say, okay, well, what direction do you guys want to go? Tell us, give us a little something before we start with all this work, because your focus groups can send you this way. And then we get it and it's like, oh, we can't do that, or that's not possible, or, that's totally different from what we're trying to do. I know you have plans of, increasing IB. So what if your focus groups say, we don't want that, let's go this way. I'm just saying, I think we need to collectively first have at least, some type of vision as far as what we together would like to see our district accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate the, wanting to push it along and get it done, but I also think we need to take our time.
And get it right. I
And
would
get
agree.
it right. And, I tend to agree with Ms. Gasparo that, yeah, I'd like to have a much more wide-ranging discussion at the next committee of the whole.
Okay.
And the beginning of this is going to be kind of messy, and unwieldy anyway as we work all this stuff out. So, but I wouldn't rush to try to force it, especially coming into the holiday season and everything. It's going to be tough.
Yes, sir.
That would be my thought.
I'd just like to say, I'm reading the three areas: conduct, learning, and physical well-being. I think the first one, conduct, is a very hot button in the community. The way that children can conduct themselves. Our long-range goal. A goal is important for our school and parents to emphasize and expect proficiency in three areas: conduct, learning, and physical well-being. There's a lot of concern in the community about conduct. It's a hot button item. It's out there in the news every time there's something goes on in one of the buildings. I would personally like to see some of the long-term residents involved in that I'm hearing from that are concerned about conduct, student conduct, and what's going on, and they're afraid. There's change going on, and they're afraid of the conduct isn't what it was 20 years ago. And I think if we're going to focus on those three areas, we need to bring in some parents from some older folks and some long-term residents to talk about conduct and what they perceive as appropriate conduct from our students. The learning and the physical well-being, I think we're getting a good handle on. I'm not so sure we have a good handle on at least the public relations part of the conduct of our students, and emphasize to them what we're doing and how these students are actually behaving versus what they see. So I would recommend that you find some long-term residents from all of our communities and bring them in for this.
You mean combined with not just long-term, but mixed residents? It can't be
Correct.
one or all,
Correct.
one or the other. but combined, you mean? Right? Is that
So
what
let
I'm
me
saying?
share, when we did the facilities committee back in 2013, Natalie created, it was an online form, and we put it out for a time period, and we were looking for representatives from each village to be a part of this team. So we had individuals that applied, and I think she went through it with the superintendent, and he decided basically who would be on the team based off of, I think we were looking for some newer people, some old, people that have been on, basically the direction that was given to the superintendent.
From the board.
He went through
Mhm.
and said, okay, this
Yes,
person,
no.
that person. Like Mr. Teray is saying, you want somebody that's, an older person, you want somebody that's, and the way the form, you can set the form up and maybe, ask for those demographics and then, choose, from that. So that's a suggestion as well. And that way it's kind of, hey, we opened it up to the public. Those who are interested, there's no pressure to be involved. They're basically the ones that, really wanted to come on, and because they made the initial application. I don't think it was a long one either, but so we got, I think we got a decent response when we did it that way. So
Well, that seems fair, as long as, I think I'd still really want our board members to go out there and contact those people who are talking to them. Yeah, and to make sure that they would
Everybody
apply,
call,
because
sure.
I don't want us to miss any opportunities for those people out there that we would want to make sure are included.
If we do this online form, though, could we include a box to check off, like they have a legal background or a finance background or an
we
HR
did that. I
background
think
or
we
an
did.
education
We had a
background or-
variety, different
criteria.
people have business background, we did
Perfect.
add that.
And since we're talking about a whole, just kind of, I don't know, delaying the process, not to rush into it, there are certain steps of the process. So is there not, it's going to be lengthy enough just to do the selection process. So even in this November, December, the holiday period, could we not utilize that just as the time to identify? Because that's going to be, it'd be wonderful if we could have identified a group, and then we still be working on the meat and potatoes, if you will, about what it is that we want to put for the discussion. But I mean, finding the people with that, could we be doing something like that in this, instead of, by the time we get ready to go to the committee of the whole, could we be coming up with this criteria, a list or something? That's something we could get out of the way and then be ready to perform or give them a task, if you will, after we've assessed what it is we needed to do. But that's something we could do.
Yes, we could, I'll get a meeting with Mrs. Nash, and I'll include my cabinet, and we will get started talking about the electronic application as you guys start thinking about how you're going to suggest names.
Scheduling is always going to be a challenge too, but I think we could also think about ways we can target. Like I'm thinking of our local, some of the people who are here tonight, our village officials and stuff, who might not be able to get them all together in a room at one time, but maybe there's a questionnaire or something that we could kind of send to them, and we could assign, members of this board to kind of track these people and kind of, get in touch with them, and maybe they'd rather just have a half-hour conversation than fill out the questionnaire, stuff like that. So I think we can think
So you
creatively
get-
about how we get the input
So it
from
wouldn't
all the
have-
stakeholders.
It wouldn't have to be synchronous information that we get. We get asynchronous information, whether it's an interview, whether it's information that's submitted, just a way to make sure that we're reaching out and gathering everything that we can.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you want to have group gatherings. You want to have group gatherings too, I think, but maybe there's a way to get, a broad base of information that can inform those group discussions.
So having the designated committee as well as having some type of survey online that, community members can complete. Okay.
I think we're finding a wide range of opportunities to gather input.
And I think one of the advantages of having a larger committee is, Mr. Anderson's right. Not everybody's going to be able to make the meeting. So you may be able to make some, but, you have somebody there, it gives you that cushion in case people can't make every meeting.
Alternates, yeah.
Yeah, we did have alternates, I think, last time too. Didn't we? Facilities committee, did we have alternates?
Yep, on the one, on the,
Wasn't it?
what was it called,
the-
Terry?
I wasn't here, so.
I thought we had some.
God.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm thinking of one of the committee members that didn't continue and we put somebody, okay.
Restructuring, the restructuring committee, there were alternates.
So, online survey.
Online survey, questionnaire, and a gathering of people from online applications.
And you said board member what? And board,
Online? If I turn my mic on, that would help. Okay, we're going to gather information from online surveys. We're going to have a questionnaire for our residents and for our village and business officials who would like to submit, and then we'll have an online application for our to gather our focus group.
and then board member recommendation.
Yes, and board member recommendations will be added to the focus
To your notes.
How many people are you looking for board members to recommend?
What'd you say?
How many people are we looking for board members to
3
recommend?
to 5.
I like that. 3 to 5.
3?
3 to 5.
3.
So my request would be, can you please send us a little quick reminder tomorrow about how this is working and when we want this information by, like the
Yes,
recommendations for people or whatever? Could you please send that out to the board?
We'll send it out to the board tomorrow, and then we'll send it out Monday, because I'm telling you, tomorrow, then Thursday, then Friday, you know.
You know, I just
Yeah,
lose it. If
no,
I don't
I
have an
agree.
email, I lose it.
Mhm.
Papers
agree.
go everywhere. Thank you.
Terry, we'll get together tomorrow. Yep.
And I know we mentioned, putting those people that have been complaining or contacting us on, but I would just like to encourage everybody. I don't think, and I'm sure this isn't the intent, I don't think we want a community of complainers. I mean, a committee of complainers. But just, wanting individuals who have a passion for helping the school district in a positive way and truly want to be a part of the solution and not the problem, like the young lady told me at the school I visited today. She said a leader is a part of the solution and not the problem. I thought that was great.
Are we also I'm thinking of a couple people in my mind that are like recent graduates within the last couple years. I mean, what do you think about that facet?
Don't have an issue with that at all. Those are all
Alone,
community members.
Yeah,
Yes.
like,
They give us
they've
different
graduated in the
views.
last couple of years, so we've
And
got
they may
some
be able
young
to give us
people.
a site that we don't have.
Okay.
And I actually think we should put students on it.
I agree.
You should put what on?
Students.
Current students.
Student leaders.
Mhm.
They did the,
Okay, any final thoughts? Okay, thank you. Any other old business?
Yes, I have one
sir.
thing. I just want to reiterate what we talked about a couple, 3 months ago. How are we progressing with identifying the expertise and the amount of people we need in maintenance and grounds to make sure that we step into the new year with an adequate amount of staff to have our PM program, keep up with the buildings, keep up with the grounds, where are we at in that process, and when can I see some names on the board packet saying I want to hire Susie, Joey, and Tommy here?
Yes, we, as you said, tonight, we're hiring a couple people. We have a couple more people that are being interviewed right now for specialized maintenance positions, which are going to be the leaders of the PM type work. Although the generalized maintenance people are going to be trained, I mean, we can train them to change filters, things like that, that's huge when it comes to PM and huge when it comes to, and greasing motors. You don't have to be a specialized person to be able to do that once you're trained to not over grease or what have you. And that's a big part of the program I want to put in is, needs to say greasing a motor can save you, $8,000 down the road because the motor doesn't burn up. And so it's little steps like that are going to make a big difference down the road. I mean, I can certainly see that the PM program is long gone, here, and as I can tell by some of the filters I've pulled out. And it's, it was not anybody's specific fault. It's just something that's happened over time. That ship sailed, and we're going to bring it back in. As far as having a specific plan, we're trying to get all the people in place that we have positions for, get them working, get them trained, evaluate what we need after that. And hopefully we won't need a lot more after that. And then, now when we start talking grounds, I'm pulling right now maintenance people to do grounds work. And those are conversations I'll have to have with, the superintendent and Dr. Williams, as far as, if we want to bring people back to maintain these fields to that point of excellence that everyone wants, then we will need people, and we'll have to make those evaluations. Like I said, right now I have one guy that's almost solely doing fields, and today actually we got for free biosolids, which are going down after the football season is done. And if you've seen the fields, they are coming back. The soccer field's coming back, the football field's coming back because we have been aerating, overseeding. We've just been, pretty much concentrating on the fields. And we're going to move to the practice fields, the football field, and get all of that. We're a lot of top dressing right now. And like I say, the biosolids are free. We've got a couple of semi-loads of that. And then we're mixing sand, dirt, putting those on top of the biosolids, and then it'll overwinter. And we'll see it on top of that too. So things are improving as we go. Again, there's a lot of evaluation to be made once we get everybody in place. And we already know that we don't have grounds people. And that's a conversation for myself, superintendent, the board, as far as whether we're going to bring them back or keep trying to do this work with maintenance people.
Okay, well, March is going to be here real quick, and we got to start doing things, as soon as spring gets here. So, what happened last year? It's November now, and just saying, please.
Well, the weather
stay on top of this, sir.
Yeah, the weather's been a godsend. We're still working on fields in the middle of November, and like I said, we had biosolids delivered today, and we know that we have the rest of the week to get all this stuff on the fields and not worry about the weather. So that's just fantastic.
They're calling for
so it's
snow
a big
now,
help.
Thursday into Friday.
Yep, big help. So
sorry, just heard it. One of
I
your
ran
Viking
into
games.
a soccer coach or assistant coach in one of my school visits yesterday who said he thought the field was looking really good. I was kind of like, sorry about the field. He goes, oh no, it's actually looking really good. So I was just over there today, and it's green.
We have a lot of new growth coming up. So and a lot of that was with Old C, but it was it's equipment we had. We just had to dedicate somebody to do the work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
I have one item, not for you, Keith. Sorry. It looks like Juan has left, but the information we've gotten regarding the technology issues with bright lights, I'm concerned, number one, what the technology issue is, and number two, how is that affecting our classrooms? Are the teachers who don't have our bright lights, how are they doing their lesson plans? How are they continuing to go on when we're expecting them to do certain things? So I don't know if anybody can help me here. If Laura can, I don't know what the technology issue is, but we're in November, so I'm concerned about that, number one. And number two, about the educational repercussions from this.
Well,
Well, the bright links that are at the middle school are, they're similar to smart boards, except it's a projector that goes onto a wall, and the wall then becomes interactive. And I know earlier in the fall, we were having some difficulty hooking those up to the teachers' new Chromebooks, so we had to hardwire them to their old PCs to get that going. We're still waiting on some part to actually connect up into the wall. And again, I'm not the like the techie, but they are working. One of the things we have to assess is whether or not teachers are fully trained in how to use them. So that's a thing that I'm working on with the middle school to get an assessment of what we need to do, because we do have some internal capacity to do that. We just have to figure out who needs it. So that's the next step. But as far I know, he's waiting for something from either through the contractor to hook up a more permanent connection for those devices.
Okay, and I guess my question then is, if they're not able to use that, is that affecting our educational process at all? Because the whole purpose of having that was part of the educational process and certain learning programs or whatever. So I'm
My
wondering if that's
understanding is that
affecting
they're working.
anything.
They're just working through a different connection right now.
Okay, because
we-
I guess then our information, I thought that was saying that some of them were still not working due to technology.
Okay,
issue.
I think we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the middle school, the new bright links that we're getting set. And the email that you sent me concerning was the number of failing projectors that we had at the high school and the number of lights out. Is that?
Well,
Do I need
you
to go-
sent information about technology issues with the bright ones. So I was one in the FYI.
Oh,
there's
okay.
And I'm just concerned about if we're still having this problem in November, are we able to get through our lesson plans? Are we getting everything out we need to get out?
Okay, I'm gonna try to go quick and concise, but it gives a little longer conversation. There's two types of innovation that you have. You have sustaining innovation, you have disruptive innovation. Sustaining innovation is basically when you use new equipment to do kind of the same things you used to. You know, for instance, we used to have the overhead projectors, and right now, when we use a lot of the projectors on the computers, we're using that more as a sustaining innovation, meaning the same way we've done it. And when we use it the same way that we've done it, we have that now. Okay. What we're trying to get to is the disruptive innovation, where we get a chance to touch that on the wall and have kids answering and doing. We're not quite there yet, but we are planning to get there as quickly as possible. I know we had a meeting today with the contractor on nailing them down on a finish date. Do you remember what that date was? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Dr. Williams. You want to have nod or something so I can just move on? No, okay. We did meet. We had a construction meeting because we want to make sure all of that stuff is in. They didn't have a date, but what they told us was the expectation was that all of the stuff would be in our hands and in the building by the end of Thanksgiving. Do I 100% believe that?
No.
I can tell you, not specific to things related to curriculum, but overall, they mentioned to me when they were here today that based on their inspection, his exact words were, based on what Chicago Heights stated was done, 90% of that was done. So that would say that we're about 75% done with the punch list as of today. And he anticipates that we will be much, much closer after next week because they'll be working Wednesday and Friday when the building is empty. So we're making.
I just want to make sure we were able to get all the educational things out there that we needed to get out
Yes.
to without
Yes.
having that piece of equipment that we deem necessary most of the time for certain things. That's all.
We're doing well with that. We want to be doing better. We want to get them to the next step. Which
I
is
just
where
want to
we
make
went
sure I
to.
understood that because of the information we were given. Thank you.
Agreed.
So my takeaway with the Bright Lights is that it's both a technology and training issue before they'll be fully implemented, kind of, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
It was really a question for Laura. It was Laura and I. It was back to the curriculum. You don't do curriculum.
And I think we kind of talked about it's going to be some snags, especially when you do new construction. So I just hope that, nobody's slacking. I hope that they're still completing things with the same urgency as when we first opened the building and needed to get it open and running. And that we will soon be seeing the full completion, because we're way past the date that they originally gave us. And my pet peeve is driving by and seeing that electric sign still no progress. It's the first thing I see, when I, come there. And then on the inside, there's, other issues as well. So I'm just hoping that they are understanding. We want to put this to rest. We want to, finish this building, because we don't particularly desire to continue to have these conversations on a building that should have been fully completed by now.
Agreed wholeheartedly. That's why we are inspecting everything, and then we're pushing them on everything that we see wrong, everything that wasn't done correctly, and any issues or concerns that we have. And we have quite a few.
I had one old business. Did Mrs. Nash leave? Is she in the back? Oh, she's in the bathroom. Oh, there she. No, we're calling you.
We thought we'd bring you out just to embarrass you a little.
Go back to timeout.
I was just going to ask, so we have now selected a new district motto. So what is the process now? I think you were planning on getting something created, correct? Okay. Right. So we're going to have it on letterhead and the district office and all the correspondence. Okay. Awesome. Oh. Okay. Awesome.
I see a FOIA request coming.
I think somebody asked, are we invited?
But if
Ice cream bars.
can't go, it's Tuesday.
That's good. Yeah.
Ice cream right after it's snowed.
Thank you. Okay, new business. I do want to mention next board meeting next month, I have asked Terry to contact our choirs to grace us again with their presence. So we will have both choirs, the middle school and the high school, that will be singing a couple of holiday tunes for us next month. And looking forward to that. Oh.
I think that's what we did last year. Do we have? Okay.
Gosh. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, we gotta keep that in mind then. Gotta keep that in mind. We should do a district-wide choir concert. So Mrs. Sanders has brought to my attention that we have other schools that have choirs, so want to keep that in mind for future, especially now that we've brought music back, that we want to utilize our choirs. I said we should have a district-wide choir concert. I think that would be nice, along with the Board of Education choir that someone came and asked about. Who's that?
He said,
happened with that?
he didn't say district, I mean,
said- he
not
said-
board, it was
What choir was
alumni.
it? Oh, alumni
It was an
choir.
alumni. They're
Oh,
still
that's what it
working on it. It
was.
was alumni.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't board
I
choir.
think then we nominated Janine to be our board representative
Yes.
on that alumni
On the
choir.
alumni choir. On
The alumni choir.
Oh, no, I'm on the dance team.
Okay.
Whipping the name.
Oh, that's right. She was whipping and nay-nay. Okay, that's right.
What, Michael D. Teray?
Mr. Brown has something to say.
Oh, Lord. Don't let him
We
sing.
wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. And a Happy
Thanksgiving
Wow, you have a
hasn't,
great
we
voice.
haven't dealt with Thanksgiving, Mr.
Look.
Brown.
Bye, humbug. Bye, humbug.
Nice.
Let me be, Mr.
Okay.
Brown, are we are we in the right?
We're still in new business.
Are we in, no, I'm being
about choir.
facetious, because he's always.
Right. Are we sticking to the agenda? Dr. Williams?
Yes, briefly, I wanted to bring up something that was included in the FYI this week. You may have seen the article that was released last week regarding Will County school districts that were placed in the financial review status by the State Board of Education. We were one of many. I don't know why that was published last week, because we've been in that status for 2 years. What I provided for you at your seat is a copy of the most recent designation, along with a summary of where we have been historically going back to, I believe, FY '08. And as you can see from that document, we've been up and down, and it's pretty obvious where we've dropped. We dropped down to a lower designation right before the cuts were made in 2010. And you can see then in 2011, that number, our designation went up. We received the CDB funds, so you can see there as well, an indicator that our designation went up. Now, for 2015-16, the year that just ended, the audit isn't complete yet, but we do anticipate that our rating will go up because we had the bonds that were issued at the end of the year. And that is one of the factors that impacts it, the balance that you have in the bank at the end of the year. So for the 2015-16 year, I anticipate that the district will be under financial recognition. And the very following year will drop down because we completed the collective bargaining with both unions, and we will be paying out increases in retro payments this year that far exceed the rate of inflation. So we do anticipate for the 2016-17 year that we're currently in, which we won't know the rating on until next year, that rating will drop. But the rating that we will receive likely in January when the auditors come to present will be financial recognition. If you'd like additional information, I'd be happy to meet with you or discuss that with you after the meeting.
So not necessarily needing additional information, but that's one of the issues that certainly was most recently placed to our detriment on the Facebook page. So do we have a voice where you can correct and or reiterate at least the most accurate information?
I would be happy to share the information
To
that
our district website.
I just shared with Ms. Nash so she can add it to the district website.
We may want to also add that this and the answer to our Facebook page. I think it's important that we see here. You have recognition as gold. It's the top level. We're not at the top level at this time, but it doesn't mean that we're in a bad spot. We'd like to be better, but we're not. And the way that they wrote it, or it was written by the newspaper, was like, hey, you've been placed there because you've been bad. And I think it's important that we get this information out, not only on our website, but on our Facebook page, so that people can see what you've been doing. Because looking at this, we only have a financial warning in one of the last, 8 years, where there was a concern. Otherwise, we've been up there pretty high, doing a very good job, and that needs to be out there and understood. The other thing that this brings to mind, at least to me, because we were talking about our strategic plan, is financial recognition something that should be a goal on our strategic plan? And I think it's important that we think about that before we just say it tonight, because it entails a lot of things. One of the difficulties that we have here that Dr. Williams tells us at least once a month is we have what kind of issues?
Structural deficit.
Structural deficit. It's built in because of, the things that we have to pay, because 75% to 80% of what our costs are people costs. So if we want to put in financial recognition, that's going to be one. That means that we're going to be cutting people, and we're going to be cutting programs. One of the things that we've worked very hard here at doing is finding ways to improve the educational system that we're in. We've got to come up with some thoughts on which way we're going to be going and what the goal is going to be. Any thoughts or concerns here?
I read the article and saw, looks like about, I think it says 66% of school boards in our state are in financial recognition. And again, each of those school districts have a separate story to tell, separate taxing base, separate contracts. So people will, of course, want to compare you to the other districts. But in my opinion, that's apple to oranges. And another way to reach recognition is not only cutting, but if we were to increase the revenue, which our revenue, a lot comes from the state of Illinois, a lot comes from our taxing base. I think the housing market is starting to make a comeback, but I don't think to the point of it would, strongly impact our level of recognition. But it's just important to keep in mind that there's many factors that affect it. And I do think as a board, we do need to have that conversation on, is this important? Is this something that we strive to have every year, and just understanding what that means, if that is the goal. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. No need for a closed session. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sanders. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you. We are adjourned 9:19.